Hello there, and welcome back. Today, I feel like making some buttermilk biscuits, so that's what we're going to do. And if I did this right, the ingredients should be right here, and you'll be good to go. Let's get started. To start this recipe, all we're going to need is a large mixing bowl and a rubber spatula. So I've got my flour here. One thing you want to keep in mind is never scoop the flour straight out of the bag. Use another utensil to scoop it out and then measure it in the measuring cup so you don't compact the flour and end up with way more than you need. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that. Then I'm going to need a teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of baking powder. I'm going to give all that a little whisk just to make sure it's all combined. Next I'm going to add cold cubed butter. If you add room temperature butter or melted butter, it's going to incorporate too well for what we're doing. So you want to just cut it into little strips, put it back in the fridge so that it's fridge cold, and then go ahead and add it. Next we're going to add a cup of cold buttermilk. Again, you want the buttermilk to be cold. And last but not least, about 2 teaspoons of honey. You're never going to get all the honey out of the little dish, so I measured about a half teaspoon over to account for the loss that was going to stay in there. This next step is a little bit important because we don't want to overwork the biscuit dough. All we want to do is combine it until it's kind of lumpy, and then once we put it on the table and start folding it and rolling it, that'll finish off the actual combining of all the ingredients. So I'm just going to give that a mix. It's already starting to smell like biscuits. I love it. You can use a KitchenAid for all this, but you don't need one. And usually with biscuits, when you use a KitchenAid or some kind of device, you overwork the dough, and that's not what we want to do. It's a little lumpy, but that's fine. It's going to incorporate the rest of the way as we roll it out. So now what we're going to do is sprinkle a little flour on our cutting board or our work surface, pull this out, and form it kind of into a rectangle. I've cleaned off my work surface, so now I have more area to do what I want to do. This is going to make a little bit of a mess. Don't worry about it. It's not super hard to clean up. If you have a larger cutting board than what I have, it'd be a lot easier, but I don't, so this is what I have. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on the work surface, just a little bit, not too much. Give that a nice mix around. And then I'm going to take my dough ball and just try and form it into a bit of a rectangle. You're going to lose little bits of dough, that's fine. I'm going to get this about 1 inch thick and pretty well wide. And you can already see it's trying to get sticky and incorporate into itself. Once I've gotten here, I'm going to take one edge and fold it over, take the other edge and fold it over, and then use a rolling pin to get it flat. And we're going to do this 2, 3, 4 times until we folded it over on itself quite a bit. The reason is, when you fold it over like this, it helps it create layers and get a little flaky. And what I'm looking for is a nice top and bottom that's real crispy, but a semi-flaky inner layer. it's also going to help your butter kind of incorporate into it and break apart. Make sure to keep your surface floured or you'll get little bits everywhere. I did clean this work surface before I did this. Make sure, if you're going to do it on the countertop, you clean and sterilize it before you go making food on it. If your rolling pin sticks, just give it a little dust and a flour all over, and that should help with that. And you can see now how the dough is starting to incorporate, and it looks more like an actual dough, whereas before it was clumpy and kind of gross looking. And this is exactly what we're looking for. Alright, the layers are starting to have a hard time sticking together, so I know I'm done. Once the layers don't want to combine very well, you don't need to roll it anymore, don't fold it anymore. Now we just want to flatten it out into like an inch thick rectangle as best we can so that we can cut it. The best thing for this is a 3-inch like metal pastry cutter, but I don't have one of those. So it's probably 2.5 inches or so. That's going to work fine. All you need to do is dip it in some flour, and then when you cut the biscuits, don't twist it, just cut it and pull it out. Biscuit number 1. I'm going to set it aside on some parchment paper until I get them all cut out. What to do with the scraps, you say? Combine them back together. Re-roll them out. Get some more biscuits. Hello, it's me from the future. My mic cut out, and I didn't realize. So if the narration doesn't match the hand motions for this next part, don't be worried. It's on my end, not on your end. You can cook the biscuits in a sheet tray. It's not a huge deal. I prefer to use a frying pan that's oven safe. You can use a cast iron pan if you have it, but you don't need one. Any of those ways will work. Just work with what you got. You want to grease your pan with our favorite ingredient, bacon grease. About a tablespoon of it will do. Just put a glob in the bottom of the pan. You'll want to spread it around with a paper towel, and you're gonna lose some of this precious ingredient, but I'm telling you right now, it is absolutely worth it. Place your largest biscuit in the center of the pan, and then the rest of them evenly spaced around it, and that'll give you your best cook over all the biscuits. You can go ahead and put them in a preheated oven at 425 for about 15 minutes and you'll be ready to go. My oven's not the greatest, so this is closer to like 20 minutes or so, but they're flaking real nice. Before I go to try and eat them, I'm going to add a little secret something to it. I took about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of honey and just heated it up so it incorporate. Now I'm going to brush the tops with some of that honey butter and pop them back in the oven for about 3 minutes or so. Alright, they're good to go. Got all that nice brown on top. This side's not quite as good because my oven's not so good, so I probably should have turned it about halfway through. A little pro tip, if you're ever cooking anything in the oven like a pan, add your hot mitt to the handle to let everybody know that it's hot and not to grab the handle. If you make that mistake one time, you'll wish it was the last time you ever did it. That's how I learned this trick. As I always say, if it's bad for the heart, it's good for the soul. I'll see you in the next one.